So hello, everyone.
Hello.
So I hope everyone got our new list. I had to make one adjustment, and that was for next month. Know My Name got a lot of press in the last month, which, I mean, it's an older book. I mean, it's from 2019. So, but it got a lot of press, and the books were not able, I couldn't get enough for us. But I have plenty of our next book, which is Ask Again, Yes. I have 9 copies at the library. So if you need a copy, just let me know, and I can get it to you. So just let me know. We've got lots.
Okay, Janine, I'm waiting to go live on Facebook here.
Okay, and I'll admit Sandy.
Okay.
I think okay. Yep, she's in. Well, it's good that you're here. It's a gloomy day, so good place to be at book club.
Okay, it's preparing.
All right, all right. Hey, did you see we have RBG on our book list? So with Harriet Tubman, both would be good to read now.
Great.
What day did you send out the book list?
Last month, but I can get it to you, or not in the beginning of the month, in the beginning of September.
Okay, let me look at my email and see if I can find it.
No, I'll send it out again.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it out.
Okay, it looks like we're live, Janine.
Okay, I think we're all here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to the Egg Harbor Libraries Book Club. We're here today to talk about the stationery shop. And, oops, I'm there. I'm muting my phone. We're discussing the stationery shop by Marjan Kamali. And I know all the people who have returned their books to me have absolutely loved it. Were surprised by it. It took me a while to get into, but yeah, I liked it too. I don't know if I loved it, but I liked it. Anyone have any strong opinions about liking it or disliking it, or anyone?
It was hard to get into, and then once I got into it.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, what do you, Nancy?
I said I like learning about the Iranian culture. It's something that I hadn't been exposed to, and so it was really nice to see something different.
Yeah.
I had just recently heard or read something about the revolution and the United States messing around in it. So I just thought that the setting and time was real interesting, covering some of that.
I saw some timeline of the United States involvement in Iran. It was on, I think, NPR NewsHour, and it went through starting in the 50s, how we were always kind of in there messing around. And yeah, so if I find that, I'm going to put it up on our page, our book club page, because yeah, we did mess around starting in the 50s. I remember I went to University of Paris, Sorbonne for my junior year abroad. And we hung out with the Iranians. And then when we got kicked out of our apartment, we stayed in the Iranian student house. So, I mean, I never thought of them as, the enemy. I don't know. And then all that happened in the 70s, in 78 with Ayatollah Khomeini. So it was interesting reading this book again and thinking back about my time. Anyone else have any strong feelings about the book?
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay, I really loved it.
And was it loving it because it was a good good story, or you learned
I think
something?
so. Yeah, well, both, but I mean, I really, it touched me
Yeah.
in many ways, and I was really surprised by that, I guess. But I think going back after, you know, being in love with someone and going back when you're 70 years old and seeing them, I mean, that whole thing, and, you know, what their lives were like, and, you know, how he always loved her. I mean, there were other things that touched me in the book, but I was really touched by it, I have to say. I think it's the best book that I personally read this summer. So,
Yeah. And I think the whole definition of love was interesting. Yeah, it's okay to have those two loves, and your first love, um, and we go through it's okay. And her husband was such a nice guy, so
yeah,
accepting of this, such a smart man. I mean, and yeah, I love the food in it. I felt like I wish this was
yeah,
one of those book clubs where you eat and read, because I love I felt like I was smelling it.
yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really a big part of it at points. It was really all about food throughout the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Janine, I'm curious, where did you come up with this title for the group to read? Was it on some lists?
Yeah. I think it was on NPR's list.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I used a lot of their recommendations. Yeah, because this is I don't think any other book club is doing this book, even though there's a lot of discussion questions out there. But I haven't seen it, and yeah, so it was good.
Mhm.
Anyone else have strong feelings before we start talking about it? What you liked or disliked about the whole thing? Trissa, you're quiet. She must be frozen.
Gone.
I mean,
She does look like she's frozen.
she's frozen, yeah, because she would be talking by now. So, um, in my last book club before coming back to the United States, I was in a German book club, and I always wanted to talk about the book, parts of the book, and it was very structured where they went around the circle and everyone had to talk before they had the questions. And I hated that. I wanted to just freely talk about it, not being so structured. So
Sounds German.
it was so German.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, they don't have romance on it because it's not really a romance novel, which I'm glad to see they didn't put ROM on the side of the book because that would have ruined it. So, but it was across many generations, and the whole stationery shop and going into the shop, and
Yes.
smell of the shop, and it was yeah, very.
I thought it was the whole structure of the book was real interesting, and how she really kept us guessing right until the end, kind of what really did happen. I thought that was interesting, starting kind of at the end and then going back to the beginning.
Yeah, I think she's a really good writer. This is her second book, and she's won awards. She lives in Massachusetts, and she was born in Turkey of Iranian parents, and a lot of Iranians left in the 70s. So they went to the United States, Germany, Turkey, all over. And just like that's her culture. And so, yeah, I wonder if her husband is Iranian, or, she got information on, the culture, probably the New England culture from her husband. I don't know. But yeah, it went back and forth through, and she employed foreshadowing by doing that, by going back and forth. I think that was that was good. Well, we have some questions we can talk about, and Roya, her just the way between Roya and Badri. I mean, she was such a character, that Badri. Did you were you surprised by her character at all? I'm like, her as a young person, her as an adult, and comparing her with Roya, and how they had their first love. We don't know if that was Badri's first love, but it was interesting how they were, you know. Did anyone have any feelings about Badri's early awakening to, you know, her in back of the market with Mr. Fakhari? I hope that's how you spell it or pronounce it. And kind of an illicit affair. And then Roy is so very careful, not holding hands. I was watching a show, and it was Passports. It's on NPR. Jess probably can help me with the name of that show. Passports. It's a cooking show with a chef from Sweden.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Is Passports? Okay, and so they went to Boston, and they interviewed a group of Iranians in Boston.
No passport required. Sorry, no passport required.
And so they have dance parties in Boston to go back to the time of the 50s. And I think about her dating Bachman, and how, you know, learning the tango and dancing, and that's what they're doing in Boston, having these parties to bring back the 50s. And I thought, I just now thought about that, and how it's a free show on NPR. If you're interested, it's not, it looks like it's going to be a travel show, but it's really not. It's more of a culture show.
And I think it's on Hoopla. Is it on Hoopla, right?
Yeah, it's on Hoopla. Yeah, it's on Hoopla and NPR. Yeah. So, well, what did you think about the mental illness of Badri? Everyone?
Badri, to me, used her sexuality to advance herself caste-wise through the society, whereas we get to the young girl and she's very reserved, and she was never that flirtatious, and so they really were very, very different in the way that they matured and went into life. And I wonder if that didn't lead to Badri's mental illness, because she used her sexuality that way.
Yeah, she used her sexuality, is correct. Yeah. And then it didn't work for her. You know, she, and then forced herself to have an abortion, and then it messed with her whole life. But just thinking about mental illness in a Muslim country, or mental illness in the 50s, it was pretty hidden by the whole culture. And I think probably in the U.S. the same thing. I don't know. So it was just the family caring for her, but yeah, what did you think about that? About their caring for her? Do you think they should have done something different, or was that the right way to go about it? You can raise your hands if you want to talk. Nancy? Nancy?
There was no medication, and it was still not a well understood disease. So the fact that they, you know, the husband and the son kind of knew how to take care of her, I thought that they did a pretty good job with that.
Mhm.
And then as more knowledge and understanding of mental illness becomes available, yes, then there's medication and then there's different treatments. But back in the 50s, I'm not sure that that really existed. And different cultures handle it different. You go down south and they just, the crazy old aunt, that's fine, and you can be the way you are. So, but I would
Yeah.
think in the restrictive culture of Iran, it would have been hard to be different. And so I think they handled it as well as they could.
Yeah.
I thought that the son and husband were amazingly sensitive to her,
Yes.
and it's to the point where I had trouble understanding where that strong bond between the mother and son came from, because I'm sure she had to be, ill right from the get-go. So, where did he develop that? But boy, he was a sweet, sweet man and sensitive to his mother. And I mean, it was such a tragedy that Roya didn't get to stay with him, because that was quite, he would have been quite the husband for her. So anyway, that was my perspective.
And the whole letter writing, and then being Mr. Fakari, I knew something happened with those letters. You're like, oh, this is not good. This is not going to turn out well. But I really liked Zari, the sister. She was
Yeah.
just like a character,
Yeah, she was a free spirit.
a free spirit, which is
Yeah.
a strange thing in Iran in the 50s. But Iran in the 50s, they weren't allowed to wear the hijab. They
Right.
and religion wasn't so strong, and that's why it was okay for them to marry out of the Muslim faith, because it wasn't this strong Muslim. I don't even remember when I was in the Iranian student house ever thinking of them as a religion. They were Iranian. I didn't think of them as Muslim. And so I think Iran of the 50s was, away from that completely. You better not wear a hijab. And then it when the Shah left, it was completely different. And so,
Perhaps that explains exactly what happened after it. They were striving to assimilate themselves in a non-Muslim way, and the reaction would swing back the other way.
yeah.
Extremely so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's extreme. Yeah. Anyone read any other books, like reading Lolita in Tehran? Anything like that?
I read it.
I could never get into that book, but it kind of talks about the culture now and wearing the hijab and then coming in and having a book club and taking it all off. And the women talking about books like Lolita and things like that. My daughter lived in Abu Dhabi. And are you all hearing me? Because it just said my internet was unstable.
You're in and
Yep,
out.
hearing you.
You're hearing me, you're all frozen, but
Hearing you. I had difficulty staying connected, but I'm hearing you.
yeah. Well, my daughter lived in Abu Dhabi for 7 years, and we had a spa day in Abu Dhabi. So, I mean, just think, you're in a Muslim country having a spa day, and it was full. And I just thought it was all people from, expats, no one. Well, those women all put on their hijabs and their gowns, and they all left, and they were all beautiful underneath. I mean, they had, so the whole cultural thing and the hijab and all that is interesting. And this book it was a little bit about it, but not a lot. Yeah. So, Are you all hearing me? Because I'm getting a lot of in and out people, and so
I froze and then I had to come back in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you if we can't hear you. How about that?
Okay, sounds good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Jack and what was Jack and
Walter?
Walter, comparing those two. And the sisters, and the date, the double date, and Jack kind of making fun about the food, and yeah, the whole, I'm like, oh no, don't do that. And she's gonna really, Zari's gonna have a hard time with that guy. What did you think, Nancy?
Okay, so it brought me back to my international marketing class where I would talk about the food in different countries to expose my students to this. And their instant reaction is always, ew, I wouldn't eat reindeer meat and whatever. And I said, just because you've never tasted it doesn't mean it's bad. Just because it's from a different culture doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. So Jack was the one that was, ooh, I don't want to try that. And Walter was the one, let me try it. I want to experience something new. So it was really interesting that the two sisters married these very opposite guys.
Yeah. And usually you can't change a man. So I was really she really changed him, Zari, to get him to be in advertising. He was this hippie poet with long hair, and then he has short hair, and
Right.
Yeah.
it's
He went
a pretty
corporate.
hard thing to change a man. So that's the only
I don't think she changed him. I think she recognized his skills because being a poet, you're an artist, and in advertising, you're communicating. And so he was good at words, and he was good at getting a meaning across. And so I think he grew up, and I think she figured out what he was really good at, and he was.
I just thought that relationship in the beginning was doomed. Like, how could she, this Iranian girl, be with this hippie? And but yeah, they ended up being this loving couple with kids, and yeah, it was, and it might be from her, the way she was raised, I'm sure. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. And Walter's sister Patricia. Let's talk a little bit about her. And yeah, I feel like I have lots of relatives like Patricia. They just
We all
want
do.
their kind.
We all do.
Yeah. Yeah, she just wasn't accepting of her as part of the family, and then what Roya went through with losing her child, and again, that was foreshadowed. I go, oh no, she's going to lose this kid. I'm like, oh no, and yeah, and then her loss, and Patricia coming around. I mean,
Yeah.
and doing the New Year's celebration, that was fantastic, But
Yeah. I thought it was really good in a way that the mother-in-law was there when the baby died, the little girl died.
yeah,
Because the mother, I don't know that the mother-in-law was completely accepting at first, but certainly being there and witnessing, she, she then knew that it was not anyone's fault, and I'm sure that helped kind of bring Patricia around too. But yeah, that was wonderful when Patricia came around, and that really was a good thing. I didn't expect it at all.
no, that
Yeah,
was,
especially after reading the last book that we read, where the woman never comes around to the stepchildren. I guess I had that stuck in my head.
yeah.
Oh,
So has anyone read anything else by her? Well, she only has written one book, Together for Tea. And I guess, I don't even know if I have it in the library. I have to make sure I get it.
I'm almost finished with it.
Oh,
The Together Tea. Sorry, I was driving, so that's why I had my video off. But she made big strides between Together Tea and this one, I have to say. I mean,
oh, good. All right.
Together Tea is nice enough, but it's pretty shallow and it's really pretty close to being in that romance category. So it's okay. I'm listening to it. I'm almost done, but not nearly as good as the Stationery Shop, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. Well, good to hear an opinion.
Yeah, well, it's fun. I mean, it's light. It's like this one light, you know, there's,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So so we've talked about the major care. Were you surprised about of how Mr. Farkari was killed? I mean, I mean, I didn't see that coming at all. And
No.
Right.
and do you think when he was looking, was he trying to give her a clue to go to the different square, or
Yeah, I think
that he was
so.
like trying to give her, you know, I didn't know if that was, if that's what was happening. I don't know, but that was surprising to me when he was killed in the square. I was surprised by that.
Yeah,
But,
and such a huge crowd that he would be the one of
Yeah.
the ones to get nailed like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really a shock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Has anyone read Rumi? Am I saying that right? On the poet
No.
that was so important in their lives?
Yes. Yes.
You've read him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I have the books in the library, but I made sure I had it. But I guess I wasn't familiar with his poems. What did you think about him, Maureen? The poems?
Well, I love them. So that was just a very rich aspect, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that they connected over that, because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
shows that at a young age they were very introspective
Mm-hmm.
and plugged in.
I wonder if they have stationary bookshops now in Tehran. I mean,
Right.
yeah, or what they look like. Because I mean, you think about how that looked and then how it looked in Boston. So the same shop. Were you surprised that he was able to afford to have a shop like that?
It sounded like he came, I mean, it sounded like he came from a family that had money. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, so
Yes.
I think the family money definitely helped him.
Yeah. And that his children, were you surprised by his children?
I can't remember what they ended up doing.
They
ran a
were
shop,
running
didn't
the
they?
book- they were running the bookstore.
Yeah.
And she met the son. That's how.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought you were talking about Fakti's kids.
Oh,
Oh, no.
The stationery shop owner.
no, we never meet them.
Right. Sorry. Yep. We never met them. I thought that's what you were talking about.
Yeah. We met his wife, kind of. She was just, what did he call her? Toothpaste white or something. I'm like, toothpaste sheets or something like that. It was like some weird, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And that they wanted their faces to be white, you know, that in that culture too, which I wasn't familiar with that, not to get tan, make sure you're covered and that's what she was like. And yeah, it didn't seem like he had any kind of relationship with his own children. You don't hear that. She didn't develop that at all. And she really didn't develop Marigold or Kyle. We didn't really know too much about Kyle, except that he ends up with Claire at the end, which was nice.
Yeah, that was implied though. I mean, it was kind of like she left you thinking maybe that's going to happen. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Two loners. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read this book quite some time ago. I read reviews of it, and I vaguely understand what you're talking about.
Oh.
And at the time, I thought it was a really good book, and I'm not having memory issues.
Mm-hmm.
I find that worthy to say that I usually remember things quite well, that I enjoy. I usually have things to say. And what I remember about this book is I was fascinated by the stationery shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminded me of situations that I enjoyed as a young person. I enjoyed that kind of store, and they don't exist anymore. It was incredibly, it led me to reading about Iran at that time and having a deep understanding of exactly what went on then. But as far as some of these characters that you're talking about, I can't even remember who they are.
Well, they weren't really highly developed. I mean, Claire was she took care of Bachman at the assisted living facility.
Okay.
And so she was just a minor character, but she had a whole chapter devoted to her. And also what was interesting was the whole idea of assisted living that they touched on, because he was not feeling bad about being there at all. He was like, this is the place for me, and I'm accepting. My family comes to visit, because when Roya goes there, she's like, what an awful thing for him to happen to him, to be there. But it wasn't. It was more of, this is okay. And I was glad to see that, because
he's the character that had the mother that was the mother that had problems, right? And you've spoken about his sensitivity.
yeah.
Right,
I
right.
think he's the guy that doesn't get the girl that he's in love with. I think this man was a very accepting human being.
Yes.
If life gives you lemonade, or if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, because otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he grew to love Shalala. Like that, she was kind of not a good character either, and it was an arranged marriage, and I, in my neighborhood growing up when I was younger, there was a Sicilian family, and all the older girls were all arranged marriages.
Oh, wow.
And I think the first 3 or 4, they had 7 children, but the first 3 or 4 girls all were arranged marriages. And they grew to love their husbands. They're all still married, except for one. But they're all still married, and they grew, the parents arranged it. And I'm not for arranged marriages. I was like so angry that she had to, because she's my age, that she had to be her, it's Loretta Syracuse, Maureen. I don't know if you remember her.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And I mean, she's still with her husband, and yeah, she grew to love him, but
What time period are we talking?
Pardon me?
What time period did this happen when they were young?
It was 74.
Wow.
Yeah,
I know.
not that long ago.
No. I just remember being so angry about the whole thing. And I mean, I went to the wedding and everything, and it was a huge ordeal, a beautiful wedding. And, but it was an arranged marriage, and it's just weird.
Yeah, you don't think about that happening in the United States. I mean, I know it happens in other cultures, and I've met people in that situation. Like, yeah. Well, no,
Right,
it's still
right.
going on in India, I am sure, and other places.
I mean, in the United States, not necessarily.
Oh, yeah, right.
74.
I would hope not, but who knows?
It was prefaced with an identification of a nationality. I mean, I'm so paranoid to say things that are stereotypic right now. Like you said, it was a Sicilian situation. Well, you know, stereotypically, they are very strongly family oriented. They're very respectful of their family and their elders, and they do what they're told. They're pockets of culture within the United States that are very much like that.
Yeah.
And
They were trying to join two families, a Detroit family and a River Forest family, and those two are Italian, like mafia kind of families. That's what the marriage was all about, and that upset me too. I mean, I still went to the wedding and enjoyed myself, but deep inside, I'm like, oh, you know, yeah. So, yeah, I hope it's not happening anymore, but.
I had students in the late 80s that were still going through arranged marriages, and the girls were happy about it. They didn't have to go to college anymore, and they didn't have to learn a career. They were thrilled that they were getting a husband, and so it does still happen, but it is a cultural thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So Nancy, you just joined us. Tell us what you thought about the book. You said you liked it.
She's muted.
Oh, let's unmute her.
Oh. There. I'm sorry. I'm joined late because I had a willing worker delivering and stacking firewood for me.
Oh.
So I thought he was going to come later, but he came earlier and I didn't want to turn him away.
No, never turn away. I'm still feeling the stacking that I did.
Well, I helped him stack. I did help him stack so it would go faster. But anyway, I actually liked the book. It took me a while to get into it because, you know, at first I thought, oh, a young love story. Do I really want to read this? But I got sucked into the cultural aspect of it, and I was interested, and I did take the time to look up what was going on in 1953 in Iran, and that interested me too. So it was a good history reminder for me, which never hurts. And I really was interested, particularly when the parents intervened so directly, or it was apparent that somebody was intervening in their relationship, but that each of them were able to go on, as you mentioned, and make their lives satisfactory and happy despite such severe and bitter disappointments. And I think that can be a lesson for all of us in many ways. I was interested and I was trying to find it, and I actually came across, by the way, right after you were talking about the sheets, she thought the sheets smelled like toothpaste.
Okay.
So maybe they look like toothpaste to her as well. And it's so funny, I was amazed I didn't write down this page because I was touched by it. It was towards the end, and there's a reference to life not being linear, but being circular. Did you talk about that already before I got in?
No, we didn't. And that's an important, yeah, I'm sure that was highlighted if you have a Kindle.
I have a Kindle. I have the book you sent down to me. So, I didn't write on it. It was towards the end, and I thought it was page 299, but it wasn't. So I remembered the wrong reference.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if
I was wondering whose voice that was, who said that life was circular and we become again and experience again what we experienced earlier in our lives and who we are as people earlier in our lives. I believe I remember that correctly. And I wonder what the rest of you think about that, because I thought that was a profound it was a profound observation, and I'm wondering if we're experiencing that now, because most of us apparently are within the same age category. So I throw that open for discussion.
Yeah, I remember reading that and thinking, it's not so bad to be old. Sometimes I'm angry about being older, but it is a circular kind of thing. Yeah, I think I tend to stay away, and I think Jess asked me about the book, and I said, oh my God, it's about old people. And I don't like reading about old people. That's what I told her. And, but it wasn't about old people. And yes, it was about old people. And I still enjoyed it. And I don't know why I have that opinion, about books like this. It reminds me of my aging, and I don't want to be reminded, but that's the circular thing is okay. We have to appreciate it and live for the day, and it's fine. I think also Gloria mentioned something about love, that it's okay to love. It was towards the end of the book, and I was trying to find that too, and I should have marked it. But she talked about love. She had all kinds of loves, and they were good. The first love, and then the Walter, the strong, stable love, the forgiving love. I mean, his love was so strong. When he took her out for her anniversary, and she thought he would just run away because she was being so terrible, and he just put his head next to her. And I'm like, oh my God, he's like the perfect man. Oh my God, what a great guy. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you all have that not wanting to read about age, or are you all good with that?
I'm good with it.
You're good with it?
Yeah.
I'd like to see how other people are coping with it, I guess. So that.
Yeah.
That
Has anyone read The Japanese Lover by
I started.
and
I couldn't keep reading it. Did anybody else read it?
No, yeah, I read it, and it has that endless, the love, it's the same kind of story, right, Carol?
Yeah, I don't remember too much about it.
Yeah, and the assisted living and
yeah,
the situation was in that too, except it was a Japanese lover, and the same cultural problems. I enjoyed that book, but then again, I'm like, oh. Yeah. So I have to accept and like that. And Trissa, I wanted to say, I started reading this book a month ago, and I stopped because I said, I am not going to remember it for book club.
Yeah.
And, and then I picked it up on Saturday and read it. And I usually, because then I can't put a book. I have an illness where you can't put the book down once you start.
As I recall, it was early on the list, or it was on a different place on the list.
Yeah, it's moved a couple of times. Yeah.
And I read it in accordance with the list.
Yeah.
But I gave this book to 2 other people because I said I really liked it. And they said to me, why?
Oh, well, you know what? It was beautifully written. It's a beautifully written book. And it grabs you, it takes you in. I mean, I couldn't put it down. I kept reading one more chapter, and then it's 1:30 in the morning. So
yeah,
well, I loved the book when I read it, but I read it when Trissa did. We read it at the same time in sequence. Okay. So
I know. I'm sorry. The whole COVID thing messed with our reading schedule.
Yeah.
Right. I remember saying to the people that I lent it to you because I thought it was good. I enjoyed it, but I really mean this. I've had a really hard time figuring out who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought that this, you'd start talking about it, and I just remember it because I really liked it. And I'm hoping I don't have memory issues. I usually don't, but
No,
I
it's,
seem
No.
to have a real big one with this book.
yeah. And that's why I stopped when I said, oh my gosh, there's going to be characters, their names. I'm going to mess up their names.
Right.
So, because I tend to read the book club books early on, and then I
Right.
really struggle. And I'm prepping the night before, rereading stuff, and I'm like, I can't keep doing that. So,
Well, thank you for the switch of the book, Yet Ask Again, Yes.
yeah.
I just finished that one. So I'll be up to snuff, hopefully, at
Got 'em
that.
on.
But
Just
I
give
want-
us a little, Trissa, or just a little something to get us into the book.
well, I found it compelling. I started it on a Thursday and I was done with it Saturday morning, and I stayed up pretty late.
Okay.
That
That's
is
a good
compelling.
One of the things that you brought up about acceptance and the circle that Nancy brought up, the way the next Yes, Ask Again, Yes ends, there's a discussion at the end between the major characters that, as far as I'm concerned, explains life.
Oh, that's an intriguing and compelling.
Yeah.
Nancy, it may not be for everybody, but it explains it suits my philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And I found
I read it too, and I really
Yes,
liked it.
I found this compelling months ago. Don't trust me, you know? I don't know. I don't know how the rest of you have been, but I have dealt with this pandemic by reading. And I usually really enjoy reading, but I am at the point now where I have read so many books. I have never had to do this, and it may be the aging thing, but I have never had to do it. I've had to write down what I've read. I've read, since I started, I've read nearly 35 books, which is a lot of books,
Yeah.
you know?
I keep a notebook of
Yeah, I
the
think
books
I've
that I
got-
read, and and then I have, brief little remarks about essentially what it was, a very brief, and then whether I liked it or not on a scale of, 1 to 5 is what I use.
That's a very good idea.
I used to do that too, Maureen, and then for some reason last year I decided to stop doing it. I don't know why, but I just decided to stop doing it. I did it for about 15 years. And then last year I decided to stop.
Yes, unmute Myra. She wants to talk.
Oh, Myra, we got to unmute you.
I can't. She's gonna unmute herself. I can't. I don't have the power to unmute her.
She's doing it.
Work?
Yes.
That work?
Yep.
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay, go for
Okay, I
it.
wanted to make a parallel to a book I was reading at exactly the same time. I was going back and forth a couple of chapters, and I put it down and go to this other one for a few days. And there was a similarity of plot because of the parent who had an idea of who the person should marry and who they shouldn't marry. The other one is a delightful romantic comedy called Room Maid, M-A-I-D, where a very wealthy girl decides to leave her family and the protection, but they really wanted her to marry this certain guy. And she's basically sleeping on somebody's couch for a while, and then they arrange for her to move in with somebody else. But there's this parent that is really, really strongly opposing her independence and wants her back in the fold. She wants her to live with the family, but it's now contemporary in a wealthy family. And it also speaks to Crazy Rich Asians, where there was this thing about the family and who you're
No,
supposed
that's true.
Yeah.
it's a theme, and sometimes when you're reading two totally different things, they come together. And while you've unmuted me, I have one more comment about poetry, about Rumi. I don't know if any of you have been stuck on America's Got Talent, but there was this amazing young man who won the whole thing as a spoken word artist. He spoke from his heart in a poetic way. It was gorgeous, and everybody voted for him all the way along. And it was so different from the acrobats and the dancers and the singers. It's just amazing. So I think there's hope for people responding to a contemporary spoken word as opposed to calling it a poem.
Yeah.
Just a comment.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
I also, just one point about parents' arranged marriages, and Roy and Zari's parents were fantastic. You know, they wanted
Yes.
them to be the Madame Curie. We're going to have you do the sciences, and he just encouraged. But then it wasn't like they were forcing them, and then they gave up everything to send them to the United States to pursue, even though Roya didn't really want to go. And I was surprised at Zari. Why did she want to go? You know, but great. And I think that's why they were such great young ladies and women as the story went on, was because of those parents and that home life that they had.
Well,
So,
they also didn't treat her as a failure when her love relationship, which they finally accepted, or they accepted, they were against it, I think, at first, if I recall correctly, but they weren't adamant. But
yeah,
when it failed, when he didn't show up at the square and it was obvious that they had broken up, they didn't treat her as a failure. In their culture, that would have been so, because they were, quote, engaged, even though they hadn't met. Had they met her parents? I can't
yeah,
remember.
The
yeah,
mother didn't come. The mother didn't come.
The
When
mother
I was-
didn't come, but they were officially engaged because he had
Yes.
come to ask her father. So some parents in that culture, in that time, would have just pushed her off in the corner and said, "You've failed," and, you know, treated her poorly as a result of that. But they
yeah.
did not, and I thought that was amazing, actually. So
Mhm.
really,
Yeah,
they deserved a lot of kudos for, particularly her father, for
yeah,
wanting to educate her and her
yeah,
sister both.
yeah. I
I,
thought
I
that.
yeah, I keep thinking back to the, you know, the girls coming to the United States like that. That had to be so scary, I would think. Like, you know, moving to a country, not even having a language there. Oh my gosh. So they were really brave. And the parents were really taking a risk there too. So there's a lot of trust. It was amazing.
Yeah. And so that was, yeah, 50s, and just the whole culture in Berkeley, and
Yeah.
wow. I, I could see that was just, you know, the beginning of like hippies and beatniks and all that, and, you know, all that cultural, and then being those Iranian, you know, it's just, yeah, it would, yeah, been a real cultural shock for them. Yeah. I've had
Yeah,
a
well,
couple
what
of
did she
cultural shocks, so I know how it feels.
Yeah, really. Well, and you know, and Roya took her a while, but and
Mhm.
Zari, on the other hand, completely different personality. And what she said, she just soaked it up, the language, everything. So, you know.
I loved the chapters when the sisters were like in bed talking, or on the rooftop talking, and they were truly, really closely bound, those two girls, even though Zari and Roya don't act like they're bound like that, but they were. And even in the United States and over the years, they are
Yeah,
stayed closely bound. But
yeah.
any
When Zari,
last thoughts
yeah.
on our book? We're getting close to the
I
end.
thank you, because now I'm remembering things about the book, why I liked it. So I thank you for the refreshing